Another movie review. This one is for my friend Jonathan down in Santa Ana, California, in lovely Orange County, my former residence. We are broadcasting live from my new residential tract home in Stanislaus County, California. He was thoughtful enough to send me this Christmas classic, which I don't really recall hearing as many people talk about this being a Christmas classic, but it certainly is up there with the diehards of Christmas movies. He sent me a two-part Gremlins 1 and 2 with a very cool slipcase. I had never seen Gremlins before, but I always knew that it was one of those definitive 80s classics. And I only had part 1, which I have so many duplicates of so many movies because I buy so many used DVDs that I find at the thrift shop and I can never remember what I have. So today I popped it into the player and I sat down with 3 of my boys, ages 4 and up, and we started to venture into this movie. And I got some cliff notes here. My oldest, my 9-year-old, he was not really into it. He kind of lost interest. My 4-year-old was terrified and told me to turn it off and told me that he wanted to throw the movie in the trash. And my 6-year-old, he said it wasn't scary and he enjoyed it. I feel like this movie was playing off of kind of like Alien from 1979. This movie came out 5 years after that. The kind of hatching this cocoon of slime and then this scary... I felt like this movie could have been a lot darker. Oh my gosh, do you guys hear the wildness? I went from a 2,300 square foot house to an 1,100 square foot house. Recently we moved and you can't get away from the craziness and the chaos. Anyway, 1984. This movie made $212 million at the box office in 1984. It was directed by Joe Dante, and I recently, within this last year, watched The Burbs for the first time. Another one of those backlot produced films, which I enjoyed. I didn't do a review. I mean, did I do a review on that? I don't know. I've watched so many movies and reviewed so many movies, I can't even keep track. He also made Explorers, which I also have on DVD. That was just okay for me. I know it's another 80s classic. But the big thing for me was this was an Amblin Entertainment, the usual Kathleen Kennedy, Frank Marshall, Steven Spielberg producers, and Chris Columbus, who was known for Home Alone 1 and 2. That's kind of his claim to fame in Mrs. Doubtfire. He wrote this script, and then he wrote it in 1981, and then Spielberg bought it. And then he also collabed on helping to write The Goonies and Young Sherlock Holmes, which would come out the following year of this movie coming out. This movie came out 3 years before I was born. And it's funny because of the Back to the Future trilogy is one of my favorites. And they used the same... This movie came out the year before Back to the Future, but Back to the Future uses the same downtown... And it's just basically the Back to the Future downtown. Even the movie theaters, one of the pivotal scenes is one of the main movie theaters from Back to the Future. So... I don't know, like, I felt like I wanted this, I was expecting it, first I wasn't expecting it to be dark, and then it started getting dark, and I wanted it to be really dark, and then it just kind of had this very cheesy 80s vibe, and, like, there's, like, this bar scene where when these gremlins metamorphosize, I'm going into this movie fresh. I'd never seen it. I didn't know what to expect. I just see this cute, cuddly creature that my wife said reminded her of a Furby. And then when it was in this state, I was kind of like, this is where they got the Stitch character from Lilo and Stitch. I feel like they were kind of basing it off of that. And then they turn into this terrifying creature, which started off being really terrifying and people are getting killed. And then it just kind of turned into this ham for me where they're in that bar scene and they're all drinking and smoking and then they're just taking on these different personas. And that's where the movie kind of was like, all right, this movie's just kind of going south for me. I started off strong and it wasn't my favorite movie of all time. And I apologize because I know people love this movie, but I am 2.5 out of 5 on this movie. And IMDb was 7.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes was 86%. Google users were 83%. I wanted it to be way more terrifying, and it's only a PG rating, and I haven't watched part 2 yet. I don't even know if we'll talk about part 2. Maybe we will. It was just very cheesy for me. I feel like... Am I wrong, folks? Tear me apart in the comments if I'm not getting it. Like, maybe... I mean, cause like, there's 80s movies that I love. Like I mentioned, Back to the Future trilogy. I could watch those movies again and again. I feel like this movie is a holiday classic for some, but I don't know. It just didn't resonate with me, and I feel terrible because someone sent it to me, and I wanted to fall in love with it. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite. That's it. That's all that I gotta say. It was okay. It was entertaining, and like I said, I borderline 3 out of 5. I'm 2.5 out of 5, pushing my way to 3 out of 5. It was enjoyable. I didn't hate it. Was it one of my favorite 80s classics? I don't know. Like, it's like there was like a very specific genre of this movie. Like, I just recently rewatched all 3 of the Indiana Jones movies, and like the first one and Last Crusade are great for me, and Temple of Doom just whatever. It wasn't for me. So, you know, to each their own is what I'm saying. If this is your favorite movie, that's great. I love that for you. But for me, until next time, we'll see you then.